Hi, friends. I am virtually joined tonight or this evening by the lovely folks of A.C.T Act Productions. Nice to meet you, Kyle and M.
Hi.
Oh,
So I always start these chats by asking each of you to do a bit of an intro. I want people to know what it is that you do in terms of the arts. You are in comedy and storytelling, but in a few words, what is it that got you interested in this path?
You have to go first. I'm terrible with these questions.
okay. Um, my, what got me interested, it was something that, well, acting specifically is something that I've just felt like I've always wanted to do. I was put into acting at a very young age
Mhm.
because it's just something that I was doing around the house. So my parents put me into it. And then when it came time to look at post-secondary, that was the only thing that interested me. It was either that or music. And I just felt like I had a bit more of an oomph to do acting. So I went to school for acting and followed that whole path. I went to Toronto Metropolitan University, and
Mhm.
their program is very, at least when I went, it was very, uh, a lot to do with creating your own work and producing your own work. And that's where I first got introduced to producing my own stuff. Before I had just been doing stuff like acting in plays that have already been written, musicals that have already been written. And then when I went to TMU, that's when I learned skills about writing and creating and producing. And I really fell in love with that when I produced a short film for my final year.
Oh, nice.
Uh, yeah, so, and that was very fun. It was supposed to be a theater piece, but we were in the pandemic at the time when I graduated, so it became a short film.
Mhm.
And then ever since then, afterwards I started looking more into the improv comedy scene because that was something that I always did in high school. And I love improv. I love making people laugh. At TMU, there wasn't so much improv the way that like we have been doing it or the way that
Mhm.
other companies like Bad Dog or Second City do it. It's a lot like acting focused, but I
Mhm.
wanted to get back into that improv style. And then I learned about all these different shows about how a lot of the shows in the city are just people putting on shows that have an idea and they're having fun. And I'm like, well, these shows are great and these are really fun. So when we started A.C.T, I said, well, why don't we do improv? And I am at Second City right now for their conservatory program. I'm just finishing up. And that's where I also learned a lot about producing improv and putting on your own show on top of what I learned at TMU. And since I was getting into that at the time that I was at Second City, I just wanted to combine them both together and start getting more into improv and doing other people's shows and then meeting other people and getting them into our shows and
Right.
just doing whatever is fun for us. That's how I got into the path of producing as well as performing. So,
That's pretty cool. You're being busy, Kyle. In
yes,
a
yes,
good
it's
way. In
busy
a good
year for
Yeah.
sure.
in a good way. What about you? What about you, Em?
I was listening to Kyle talk and I totally didn't think about my own answer, so I'm gonna really try.
Well, that you were very engaged.
So long story short, I was one of those like very shy kids, and my parents put me in the arts to try to get me out of my comfort zone so I did improv and musical theater when I was a kid, and I fell in love with it. And over time, I just continued to do it. I felt that it was like a true passion of mine. I went to an arts high school, Cardinal Carter Academy for the Arts, which is here in Toronto.
Yes.
We're lovely place, and they have like a tech crew there. Since we have our own theater, and I discovered there what a stage manager was, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when I absolutely fell in love with stage management and production for theaters and producing and I ended up just living in that theater for my entire high school career. I loved it so much. I was a part of like every stage crew for every show there. And then when it came time to go to post-secondary, I went to TMU as well, which is where I met Kyle in my final year there. And that's where everything started. And I went there for theater production. And since then, I've been stage managing. I've been stage managing in Toronto for just over 10 years now. So that's been a very amazing career that I've been working on. And my time at TMU, I was always interested in producing. I didn't get a lot of opportunities in the production side to be able to produce, but I knew that that was a passion of mine that I wanted to find a way to start doing eventually. And gotta be honest, that quarter life crisis hit, and I was like, oh my gosh, I still have this like goal in my head that I really, really want to do, and I haven't done it yet. So we're just gonna do it and we're gonna push ourselves and we're just gonna say, let's try. I think a lot of like judgment in me was kind of stopping myself. And eventually I was like, you know what? There are people out there that are just producing works that they love and that they're passionate about. What stops me from doing it? And that's how that started. I also, as stage manager through my career, have really seen, have become a big advocate for mental health for arts workers. And I wanted to create a company as well that was a big advocate and support for that, and to be able to pioneer new ways of working in the arts that also is mental health aware with like their scheduling, and just to be a company that's more of an advocate for that. So that was a big passion as well for me that I wanted to incorporate into this company. So that is me.
No, that's great. And thank you for mentioning that. I was reading that A.C.T stands for Artist Changing Theater, and that you have a purpose of, yes, you're going to make us laugh, we're going to enjoy the storytelling with you, but there's also this consideration for the artists that are involved. So maybe let's pick up on that thread a little bit and sort of talk about, what do you, how do you collaborate with one another, because you work together, and the other artists that you engage with.
Yes. So right now where we're at, it's about being aware of people's, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the big thing at the beginning of it all was about burnout for stage managers, and creating spaces where we're aware of that, and um, being open-minded to how can we do something different. There are structures in place right now in our industry of how we do things, and everybody's kind of doing it in the same structure. And for us and with the people that we work with, we really want to question that, and how do we, get to opening night, but how do we do it in a more mental health conscious way? How can we support our workers and our crew, like, and our artists, and be able to move forward and create a space that has less burnout? So that's kind of what we're focusing on a lot right now, as well as equitably paying for our artists. We're very proud that we're able to, as a young company, we really want to make sure that we pay our artists for our time, and that's part of burnout as well. So that's something that we're also really focusing on.
Yeah, no, thank you for mentioning that, because I think oftentimes we don't really hear about this equitable, access to getting paid, but also just access in general. And the companies like yours are doing a little bit of that push. You mentioned that it's a young company. For people who are not familiar with A.C.T, how long have you been around? I know both of you have been busy, but
A.C.T has been a thing for just over a year. We just had our 1 year anniversary last month, so it's still very fresh. Thank you.
congrats.
Thanks.
And what are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way in this 1 year of, we're going to follow our passion and kind of, push through in creating our own company?
I can go first.
Sure.
I think it's being collaborative with our artists. I think every artist that we work with, they bring something to the table that is uniquely beautiful, and bring something to that show that we wouldn't have been able to do by ourselves. So inviting that collaboration and being able to explore that openly, I think that that's been a really wonderful like lesson and experience that we've been able to get so far. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, there have been a lot of things, a lot of lessons. But I think like the big thing for me, that I guess it's more of a takeaway and than a lesson, is just like about how do I'm gonna try and be concise, but like it just really clicked about with doing our own stuff, how like rewarding and like important that is. Like, but for a long time I was someone who was like, I'm only gonna audition and that's it. And you do that for a little bit, and then you realize it's not always how it's gonna work out. But then just when kind of approached me with the company idea, and then we started coming up with ideas for shows, I guess that just like it feels really good to put your own stuff on and just go for it.
Mhm.
So I guess the big lesson with that is like, for me, is just how important it is to just kind of take the dive.
Yeah.
Instead of kind of being like, okay, you know, I'll like, you know, tread the waters a little bit, but just being like, you know, let's just do it. Like, I think that's a mentality shift that's really changed in me when we started doing this, is just going forward and doing it, because now we're doing it, and that's really exciting and rewarding. So.
There you
That,
go.
that's really cool. I mean, you're also continuing to learn along the way, right? So it's not like, the learning stops altogether.
Learning every day.
Yeah. And like besides the short film that I had produced for the final year, this is kind of kind of the first run at producing theater and live work and working with other artists, because the short film was just me. Like, it was,
Yeah.
as we were in a pandemic, my
Right.
brother filmed things, but I edited
Yeah.
it and a few other people took
Mhm.
pictures. But just learning about how to like communicate with other artists, and that whole skill set is definitely something that I think is, you can learn by hearing from other people, but I think just by doing it, again, is just throwing yourself into it. And I'm sure there's been some mistakes a little bit along the way in the past few projects, but I think we're getting better and better as we
Yeah.
keep doing it. So.
Mm-hmm. I remember hearing the line of practice makes permanent, and that's probably, what applies in a lot of art, but in a lot of the work that we do in general. Um, so I came to know of your productions at the last show, which is The Stage Isn't Big Enough for the Two of Us, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I appreciated how circumstances out of your control meant you had to have a new person join you, Kyle, on stage, and how you navigated that. And we still managed to get a lot of laughs out of that. So I wanted to ask you about kind of thinking on your toes all the time. I know, you're holding it together in the back, managing things, but you on stage, Kyle, and having to react to the audience, because what I appreciated was that you kept the one story or the one theme, right? You're not jumping from like new idea to new idea.
Yeah, so that's something, truthfully, I had never done before that night. Josh, who filled in for Justin, his thing as an improviser is long form, but he also had never done a full hour. He was like a 20-minute,
Yeah.
and same with me. So we're very fortunate that he was like, absolutely, I'll do it. Um, it's interesting because it doesn't feel like an hour. It felt like as soon as Josh hit like the blow line and the lights started to go down, uh, I was like, that's it. Oh, okay. Like, I thought we were gonna have to kill another 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think, like, in terms of just like thinking on your toes or trying to keep it going as like a full set, was just about being engaged with what Josh was doing. And because you get the stuff from the audience at the top, but what's so nice about improv is that's kind of just an inspiration, and you can build off of that. It's fun to like bring stuff back in, but for me, in that night, in that moment, I think was just like, all right, well, I'm just gonna say whatever comes out of my mouth and then try and justify it later, and hopefully it builds a story. And then if it doesn't build a story, then we'll forget about it and then we'll try something else and whatever. But yeah, I'd never done the full hour before, so it was just, I think, just trusting the 20-minute skills to be extended.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
I'm just in the back going, oh my gosh, how do they remember these things? So I just
Right.
want to say that.
Well, I think you and I were on the same kind of boat here, and because we're just sort of like, where's this gonna go? But clearly, it looked like you knew where you were going, and I think that's sort of the fun part of just being an audience member in an improv show.
Absolutely.
Right. So you have another show coming up now so what in the musical? I'm guessing you're incorporating the things that you like, Kyle, and along with other artists. So let's talk a little bit about that show.
So excited for that show.
Yes,
Yeah.
this show is going to be very fun. we are doing, it's a musical improv show. It's a game show. So our first show that we did was also a game show with funny improv games. This one's very similar. It's just musical improv games. We'll have 5 artists. Yeah.
Yeah, and I grew up watching Whose Line Is It Anyways? And like one of
Mhm.
my favorite games that they would do is always like the musical ones.
Yes.
This is just like all of them together in one, like for one night, and just back to back, the best games. It's gonna be
I'm
fantastic.
noticing a trend that we're just doing shows that are more and more difficult for us. So first is the games, which is like pretty familiar. Like I
Yeah.
can
Mhm.
watch the improv games, then the long form, never done it before. Okay, like the hour long form, never done it
Yeah.
before. Now music. I am a musician, but musical improv is completely different beast. But we're like, okay, let's
Yeah.
just do it. I think it's gonna be fun. And like our cast is they do musical improv around the city as well. And one of our guys teaches it as well. So I'm really excited. We had a rehearsal last week
Mhm.
and it was so much fun to do with all of them. It was just shenanigans, and that's what we like to see.
Mhm.
Shenanigans is a good way to put the
Yeah.
show. That's
Yeah, that's not bad. So you kind of answered my next question, which was, do you do any prep work? And I guess you do. You do rehearsals. But in this particular show, What the Musical, will you also take audience like input?
Yes.
Oh,
We'll start every game with something that the audience gives us, and that will be based on the game. Some of the games have a set musical structure,
Mm.
so we're familiar with it, and then we just have to fill in the bars or the notes
Yeah.
or the lines with something related to what they've given us. So, yes, it will always be based on audience suggestion,
Yeah.
just so people know it's improvised.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
right. Yeah. And I mean, that's why I always ask, right? Because I know that, somehow you need to have something to hold on to. um, Formers so that you keep on track. Is this also an hour show? How long are we expecting it to be?
Yeah, I think it's about an hour.
Roughly an hour, yeah. Um, yeah, we have a few games. I think we have like 8 games or something like that we're playing, and so it'll probably be about an hour
Yeah.
or so.
Be good. It'll be quick. It's gonna go by very quick that hour for sure.
Well, when it's fun, you're not really thinking how long it's going to be, but it's always good for people to know in case they're coming along. So I'm going to say it now before I forget. So What the Musical is happening Friday, May 17th at 8:30 at the Assembly Theater. I'll make sure that there are links so people know where to buy their tickets. But just to kind of keep going a little bit here, you mentioned that things are getting a little bit more involved, perhaps, maybe not a little bit difficult. Do you see yourself also maybe expanding from outside Toronto and taking some of the productions on the road, or still testing
Good
out?
question. Yeah. Well, we've already planned out what our season for like this year is looking like.
Bless you.
So right now, it's not going to leave Toronto. We're still within that realm of like comedy and improv, and we have a show in the summer that we're very excited about. That's even more of a stretch for us. That's immersive, so we're very excited about that realm that summer production will be for us. So we're focusing a lot on that. It would be great eventually to bring this into other cities and not in like the current 2024, but like, it's gonna
Right?
happen one day. It's a goal and it's gonna happen. But right now I think we're here. We're basically based in Toronto for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the what M said about the immersive piece, like
Right.
experimenting, that'll be very interesting to experiment with doing stuff in a non-traditional theater setting.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think if that goes well, I would definitely be open to doing stuff that
Outside, yeah.
isn't necessarily in Toronto if it serves what the project is.
Of course, of course.
It's on the
Yeah,
horizon.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's your first year and you're doing a lot of ambitious things already. So,
Thanks.
Thank you.
it's time, right?
Yeah.
Um, so what keeps you engaged with the work that you do with the arts? Any influences that you kind of look towards or look to, when thinking of ideas for new shows, or or things that you talk about with each other, for example?
Good question.
Like inspiration for our shows, for me, it is I like having fun on stage.
Yeah.
Um, I also grew up with Whose Line improv specifically, and it just looked like so much fun. So it was what we always tell our cast members is like we just want everybody to have fun up on stage, and hopefully like the repertoire or the structure of show that we've set is something to have fun with.
Right.
And I think we've been successful so far in that because all the shows have been really fun to do. So I think just if we sometimes,
Even for our audience members,
yes,
like
and
the
for our
fun for the audience, like it's a night out, it's like a date night, you go out with your family. Although sometimes, we make some fun jokes that are not like PG-13, but
yeah,
still bring out the whole fam.
no, we're not concerned about that, but
But we just want it to be a fun night out. Comedy is a big thing for both of us. We, as friends, when we first met, we bonded over comedy and comedians that we really loved, and that's always been something that connected us. And we like putting that on the stage as well. We like people leaving with like a belly full of laughs and a sore abdomen because of all the laughter that they had, and just like a good time to be able to forget about things that are going on in life and just be able for like an hour to enjoy shenanigans on stage.
Yeah, and so like that kind of is what inspires it. I think we'll see things either in the city or like on television that we go, oh, that would be kind of fun to do.
Yeah.
What can we do with it? The one we just did, This Stage Ain't Big Enough for the Two of Us. There's a comedian named Ben Schwartz, very funny guy, and he does a lot of long form stuff. And that's where I was like, well, let's try and do something. Let's try and do a show like that. That would be really, really fun to do. And that's how we did This Stage Ain't Big Enough to show.
Yeah.
So yeah, just whatever seems kind of fun to do. Who knows if we'll stay in the improv world? I mean, we both are writers as well. So if something sparks that we do, then we'll do that.
Yeah.
I like how you're segueing into some of the questions I wanted to ask. If you wanted to do something outside of improv, or maybe go back to doing a bit of filming, because you mentioned your short film as well. So I'm wondering if you see improv as a means to practice a lot of these other skills that you could use elsewhere, right? Writing, producing, and I guess a lot of creating behind the scenes work too.
It's definitely created a great foundation for us. It's been something that we've been able to leverage, especially early on in the company, and be able to get our name out there and to just get some experience in general. We both love improv, so it just seemed like the perfect fit for us. I think improv is definitely still going to be part of the company moving forward. We're very passionate about that. But there are some other very exciting things that we're looking forward to bringing to audiences eventually once they're done our pre-production. So it's gonna be good. Yeah.
Very nice. So where can people follow you for updates on anything that you're working on outside of this May 17th event?
Okay, so you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A.C.T Productions. That is,
I'll put it in the links. Don't worry.
You have TikTok too?
We do have a TikTok at the exact same handle too.
That's perfect for me.
Yeah, so all 3 platforms. There you go. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you both so much for this quick chat. Looking forward to more laughs in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, thank you so much again.
Excellent. Thanks.